Welcome to the CPM Customer Success Podcast, where we help Office of Finance leaders enable an exact solution to enhance their corporate performance without spending countless nights and weekends in the office. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Smetana from Nova Advisory. Nova Advisory is a 100% OneStream professional services diamond implementation partner. We help OneStream customers and prospective OneStream customers get the most out of their OneStream investments. For CPM Customer Success listeners, we now have a weekly email newsletter to keep you informed on the latest CPM Customer Success news. By subscribing today, we'll keep you informed on episode releases, including customer success stories, OneStream interviews, and capabilities to keep you up to date about OneStream's unified platform for finance. You can check that out now at Nova Advisory's website, novaadvisory.com/podcast, and subscribe to the CPM Customer Success podcast newsletter today. Today we're diving into how companies in the energy and utilities industries are transforming their finance operations with modern technology. Specifically, we're going to explore how a unified finance platform can tackle some of the biggest challenges these companies face. So whether you're a finance or accounting leader in the utilities, renewable energy, or any related energy sector, this episode is for you. So energy and utilities might all be about powering our homes, our cars, our cities, but behind the scenes, finance teams in these industries are dealing with some serious complexity. So think about it. Multiple business units, like generation, transmission, or retail electricity, or even renewable energy projects, have mountains of data from different systems. They have long project life cycles, and they have strict regulatory reporting. Leadership doesn't just want monthly reports, they want real-time insight and confidence that the numbers are accurate, they're up to date, and no matter how many regions or subsidiaries are involved, all that information flows together. Volatile fuel prices, shift to renewables, and investor scrutiny on performance all mean that finance teams must deliver with faster analysis and foresight. So what's the finance challenge that energy and utility companies and organizations throughout the globe experience? Before we get into our customer success stories, let's look behind the scenes and set up why finance transformation is so critical in these industries. If you work in energy or utilities, you probably recognize some of these pain points. First off, disparate systems and spreadsheets. Many energy companies grew up with siloed systems. Perhaps they had an ERP for every power plant or region, plus they are planning completely in Excel spreadsheets. Because of those siloed processes, finance teams often spend so much time gathering data that by the time that they look at the reports and those reports are ready, they're looking in the rear view mirror. In an industry where commodity prices or demand can swing quickly, a report that is weeks old is not very useful. One CFO told us that refreshing a forecast used to take them nearly 2 weeks. By that time, the assumptions behind that report had already changed and their leadership had moved on. And that's a common reframe. Third off, complex ownership structures, particularly in utilities and renewable projects. You often have joint ventures, you have tax equity, investors, you have minority stakes in projects. All of these, just name them. This creates an intricate accounting requirement dilemma. For example, you've got to allocate income to different partners, or you've got to handle partial ownership within your consolidation structure. Traditional tools struggle with this, and many finance teams resort to big Excel models to handle things like those equity pickups and minority interest. Fourth, regulatory and multinational demands. Energy and utility firms might need to report under multiple standards, things like GAAP, IFRS, or regulatory accounting. They also need to deal with multi-currency consolidations if they operate globally. So ensuring one consistent version of the truth is hard if different regions are all doing their own thing and they're emailing files back and forth. Fifth, the need for agile planning. Beyond historical reporting, these companies need to plan for the future. Scenario planning for things like a spike in oil prices or the impact of a new solar farm coming online earlier than expected, all those have actual and forecasts, impacts, and if they live in disconnected systems, it's tough to answer questions like, what if this happens or what if this scenario occurs? This is where a platform like OneStream comes into play. For energy and utilities, a unified platform means data from all of your plants, your projects, and your business units get consolidated automatically with proper controls. Headquarters can see their numbers as soon as they're submitted by the local teams, even if the close hasn't finished yet. Intercompany eliminations, currency translations, partial ownership, they're all handled by system logic instead of manually. You gain the ability to extend into planning, forecasting, even things like people planning or capital project planning, all within the same platform. So finance can focus on not just producing reports, but providing insights and forward-looking scenarios for their business. So let's bring this to life with our first CPM Customer Success story for this week. Story number 1 is the solar developer that outgrew Excel. So imagine a renewable energy company that builds large-scale solar farms across the country. We'll refer to them as SunGen for this context. SunGen started small, but within a few years, they expanded to dozens of solar projects in development or operations. That's terrific growth, except their finance processes didn't keep up. Each project or regional team tracked their finances in their own Excel files, and the corporate finance team was consolidating all of that in, well, you guessed it, Excel. SunGen's accountants would export trial balances from their accounting software, then manipulate and consolidate results manually. Intercompany eliminations were done by manual journal entries and spreadsheets. They even had separate Excel workbooks for things like cash flow statements, roll forward schedules, which weren't linked together automatically. Each month end felt like a minor miracle if the numbers tied out. And more often than not, there were version mismatches and late night scrambles to figure this all out. Each business unit had its own report format, so when management wanted a consolidated view, the finance team spent days standardizing and reformatting. By the time the presentation was ready, the data was a bit stale. Not to mention, preparing a complete board package or an investor update took an enormous amount of time, gathering dozens of files. With Nova Advisory's help, though, SunGen was able to stand up consolidations and close in OneStream. All those Excel spreadsheets were replaced by OneStream's workflow for their financial close. Each project entity now loads its data, some directly connected to their ERP, others via controlled Excel uploads. OneStream automatically performs currency translations and intercompany eliminations within the system. There's no more manual calculation spreadsheets. If two entities have transactions with one another, OneStream flags any mismatches and eliminates the balances once they agree. SunGen's accountants could actually see any intercompany differences early and resolve them before finalizing. This was huge because it used to be discovered late in their consolidations process. They also built the cash flow statement within OneStream, and that was linked to the financial data and roll forward forms. Accountants at each entity enter their additional cash flow detail into a form, and OneStream compiles all this automatically. Goodbye to separate cash flow Excel files, now it's all integrated. They added controls, things like task checklists, approval steps, and audit trails that are built within the OneStream workflow. So if a number changed or an adjustment was made, it's all logged. This gave their controller a lot more confidence in the process. There's no more, well, what changed this formula type of panic. SunGen went from a fragmented, error-prone process to a streamlined month-end close. They created a report book that could be produced with a push of the button, dynamically pulling the latest data for all their projects. Something that used to require cutting and pasting into PowerPoint each month became essentially a one-click task, saving days of work. They also gained the ability to build custom dashboards for different user roles. For example, when an executive logged in, they saw a dashboard with key metrics. Maybe it was total megawatts of solar revenue, operating expense, or cash flow by project. All was updated in real time. Accountants had their own dashboard focusing on tasks that they had to complete. This made the system not just a back-end engine, but a user-friendly interface for different stakeholders. The first quarter they closed on OneStream, SunGen's reports across all departments finally looked and felt consistent. Same format, same definitions, which built a lot more trust when sharing data with the board and their investors. A lot of energy companies out there are in the same boat. They're running a multi-million or billion-dollar operation in Excel and duct tape. It works until it doesn't. A unified platform like OneStream replaced dozens of spreadsheets for this company, and it slashed the close time. In fact, not only is this process faster and more controlled, it changed the finance team's role. Instead of spending 80% of their time gathering and reconciling data, they can spend more time analyzing and giving insights to management. So let's move now to our second CPM customer success story for this week. The challenges of a global operation and how OneStream helped bridge continents. I want you to picture a company at the intersection of energy and sustainability. We'll call them RecycleSphere. RecycleSphere is one of the world's largest battery recycling enterprises. They take used batteries from your car, your phone, industrial equipment, and they reclaim valuable minerals like lead and lithium to be reused. They operate in North America and in Europe, with plans to expand into Asia. RecycleSphere was using an older Oracle Hyperion enterprise system for collecting their financials. However, Essbase was really just a multi-dimensional database. It's not a CPM solution, so it lacked built-in consolidation logic. That meant things like planning and performing eliminations or ensuring data quality still required manual effort or additional tools. Each region's finance teams would extract their trial balances, they'd make manual adjustments in Excel, and then they would load data into an Essbase cube via an Excel add-in. Essentially, they had a semi-automated process, but they're still heavily reliant on Excel work outside of the system. Corporate headquarters had no visibility into their local financial data until late into the process. They had to wait for each region to finish their Excel tweaks and push the numbers into the consolidation tool at the end of the cycle. This often meant unpleasant surprises. Things like discovering a big miss on a European subsidiary's results only at the consolidation time. Whereas if they had seen it earlier, they might have prompted a correction or at least been prepared to explain it. Also, because the legacy system didn't support things like intercompany matching, the teams in different countries would sometimes report transactions differently. This led to intercompany differences that had to be fixed manually after the fact. There was a lack of a single source of the truth. People still distrusted the consolidated numbers. And often, they'd keep their own side spreadsheets as a reference, which tells you the process wasn't instilling confidence. RecycleSphere decided to modernize by implementing OneStream to unify their consolidations across all of their entities. And here is what changed for them. With OneStream, as soon as a local finance team submits their data, whether that was a direct connect to their ERP or by uploading it into OneStream, that data becomes visible to corporate immediately. There's no more waiting until everyone is done. For instance, a US team might load their own numbers on day 3 of the close. Europe may load them on day 4. And at headquarters, they can see all of it and start their analysis before day 5 if they want to do so. This was a game changer. It turned consolidations into more of a continuous process rather than a big bang at the end. Because OneStream allowed each region to input its data along with the necessary supplemental details, corporate could enforce their standards. OneStream was configured to run confirmation rules on the data as it came in. For example, they made sure that the cash flow was balanced, or the intercompany accounts net to zero across all of their entities. If something was off, the system would alert the user right away. The local team then fixes the issue in OneStream rather than offline. All these adjustments are now tracked centrally. This is a huge win when implementing OneStream's intercompany matching solution. Now all their entities see all of the intercompany counterpart balances in real time within the system. So let's say if the UK entity recorded a sale to a US entity, both the sides could see that and determine if there was a match. If they were prompted to resolve differences right in the closing workflow, they would do that instead of kicking it up to corporate later on. This meant by the time consolidations was done, there were fewer surprise mismatches. Those things were ironed out on day 1 or day 2 of the close. OneStream handled the currency translation for their European books to US dollars automatically, and that was at the rate inputs that they provided. And RecycleSphere enabled the OneStream multi-language extension, so users in France, Germany, or Latin America could view their interface in their local language. This significantly improved adoptions. People could work in the language they were most comfortable in, which had been an issue with an old English-only tool. With all actuals in one place, they built some executive reports that were pretty much in real time. The CEO wanted to know how the company was doing this month versus the prior month. They didn't have to ask someone to compile it. They could retrieve a OneStream report or dashboard at any time. One big ask from leadership was getting a combined view of US and European financials on demand, which after OneStream was available within one click. Before OneStream, the consolidated financial package was available only after every region was finished, and their corporate team spent a day or two verifying and fixing issues. That was maybe around day 10 after their month end. Now, after OneStream was implemented, by day 5, the CFO could run a preliminary consolidated income statement and trust it because most of the data was already in and validated. They ultimately shaved several days off their close. RecycleSphere achieved a unified close for both their US and their European operations, whereas before it was semi-unified at best. They also significantly strengthened their controls. For example, they are able to enforce separation of duties through OneStream's security roles. This gave their auditors comfort and actually reduced audit findings related to their consolidations process. The finance teams from different regions started collaborating more. OneStream became a bit of a hub for them. And when they had their periodic global finance calls, they were looking at the same reports and talking the same language. This story shows the importance of real-time data and control in a global enterprise. When you're dealing with something as critical as recycling hazardous materials, you also have regulatory reporting to government agencies. After OneStream, RecycleSphere could produce accurate, consolidated data faster, which meant compliance reports, things like environmental fee calculations, which were tied to volumes, could all be turned around quickly and confidently. And everyone from the plant managers all the way up to their COO had one source of numbers to reference. So closing thoughts. Let's zoom out and recap what these stories have shown us. Number one, it's all about having one source of truth. In each case, moving to a unified platform meant everyone from the local finance teams to the corporate teams, they're all working within the same data, the same logic, the same definitions. This eliminated confusion and debate over things like which numbers are correct. When a utility company CFO can walk into a meeting, everyone has identical figures in front of them, that's a huge win for alignment. Number 2, improved speed and agility. The solar developer cut down its close-end reporting cycles significantly. The global recycler was able to slice days off its processes and respond faster. Faster close times don't just win back evenings and weekends for the finance teams, they enable the business to react faster. If market conditions change mid-quarter, an agile finance function can create an early reforecast or a scenario analysis to advise their leadership rather than saying, well, we'll get back to you in another month. Third, handling complexity and growth. These industries are facing rapid change. Renewables growth, acquisitions, evolving regulatory constraints. The ability to handle complex requirements gives companies a future-proof foundation. They know the system can scale as they grow or as the business model shifts. Fourth, value-added analysis. A recurring theme is that once freed from chasing numbers, finance professionals can turn their attention to a deeper analysis and business partnership. For utilities, that might mean analyzing the financial viability of grid upgrades or electric vehicle charging programs. In a renewables company, well, this could mean evaluating the return on investment of a new solar farm under different financing scenarios. These are strategic tasks that drive the business forward, and they only get adequate attention when the baseline processes are efficient. A unified CPM platform is a big enabler of this efficiency. Number 5, confidence and control. It's hard to overstate the importance of confidence in your process. When you trust your numbers because you know where they came from, you can drill into the details, and you have controls ensuring accuracy. You project that confidence to the rest of the organization. Finance stops being seen as a bottleneck or a source of endless revisions and starts being seen as a reliable navigator. In heavy, regulated industries like utilities, being able to demonstrate solid controls and one version of the truth also strengthens your position with auditors and regulators. That peace of mind is valuable. Energy and utility companies today are under pressure to modernize not just their power plants and grids, but their back office systems as well. And technology like OneStream is helping finance teams close this gap between the operational data and financial insights. It's enabling a shift from hindsight to foresight, from just reporting what happened to actively starting to see what will happen by providing timely analysis. And it's doing so in a way that adapts to the industry's unique challenges, whether that's handling a web of project entities or connecting teams across continents. So if you're in the energy or utility space and some of these challenges struck a chord, it might be worth taking a closer look at your own finance processes. Are you still stuck in spreadsheet chaos or wrestling with fragmented tools? And what could you gain from unifying and automating those processes? Every organization is different, but the common thread is clear. Investing in the right financial systems like OneStream can empower your teams, even in a turbulent industry. Thanks for joining us for this episode of CPM Customer Success. Reminder to check out the CPM Customer Success weekly email newsletter to stay informed of the latest CPM Customer Success episodes and OneStream news. You can check that out now at the Nova Advisory website, novaadvisory.com/podcast, and subscribe to the CPM Customer Success podcast email newsletter today. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of CPM Customer Success.